This is what happens when you pour hot water on cold water. It floats, obviously. Even after a long time, the hot water just sits there. So this is what we would expect to happen in the ocean as well. A hot layer is heated from the sun and stays on top of a colder layer. But we find something much more strange than this in the real ocean. There isn't just one drop off in temperature near the surface like we see in this experiment, but there's one step with one large drop in temperature, but then a little deeper there's another step, and then another, and then another. These are called the thermohaline staircases, and for many years they were a mystery. But scientists finally think they have the answer, and it's called salt fingering. In this video, I'm going to show you what it looks like when diffusion seems to run backwards, when differences grow instead of smooth out. In the early 1960s, scientists developed new instruments that could measure temperature and salinity of the ocean together, with much higher vertical resolution than before. For the first time, oceanographers could trace specific water masses using their unique temperature salinity, or TS signatures. As a result, oceanography shifted from simple mapping to trying to understand how the ocean actually circulates. One of the biggest questions at the time was what happens to Mediterranean water once it flows into the Atlantic Ocean. Because evaporation in the Mediterranean is so strong, that water becomes unusually warm and salty. So scientists expected it would be easy to track as it spread through the colder Atlantic. But when they measured the water near the outflow, they found something that confused everyone. Instead of seeing a smooth transition from salty to less salty water, they saw what looked like steps. This same stepped pattern appeared in temperature too, forming layers that extended through hundreds to sometimes thousands of meters underwater. At first, no one understood how these layers could form. But then in 1960, physicist Melvin Stern proposed a radical idea. Heat and salt don't diffuse at the same rate. Heat spreads quickly while salt moves much more slowly. He realized that if warm, salty water sits above cooler, fresher water, tiny parcels of fluid can lose heat faster than they lose salt. This process became known as salt fingering, and it helped explain why the mysterious thermohaline staircases could form. Let me show you how this works in a little benchtop setup that you can do at home as well. But before we do that, I want to thank the sponsor for this video, BetterHelp. BetterHelp is the world's largest therapy service, and it's 100% online. With BetterHelp, you can tap into a network of over 30,000 licensed and experienced therapists who can help you with a wide range of issues. To get started, you just answer a few questions about your needs and preferences in therapy. That way, BetterHelp can match you with the right therapist from their network. Then you can talk to your therapist however you feel comfortable, whether it's via messaging, phone, or video call. You can message your therapist in the app or online anytime, and schedule a live session when it's convenient for you. And if your therapist isn't the right fit for you for any reason, you can switch to a new therapist at no additional charge. With BetterHelp, you get the same professionalism and quality you would expect from in-office therapy, but with more scheduling flexibility and at a more affordable price. BetterHelp accepts both HSA and FSA cards, making it even easier to prioritize your mental health. In 2024 alone, over 137,000 people used their HSA or FSA benefits for therapy through BetterHelp. So be sure to use yours before they expire. So get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/actionlab, or just click the link in the description. And thanks to BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back to our experiment. As you saw at the beginning, if you heat some water, in this case I've dyed it blue, and then pour that water over some colder water, what you can see is that it just floats on top. Even after 10 or 15 minutes, it still just sits there. The heat will eventually diffuse downward, but it takes a long time. After about 5 minutes, even when I measure the temperature, you can see that it's still a pretty big temperature gradient right at the interface between the two colors. On the other hand, if I take water that's the same cold temperature as the cold water and then put a little salt in it, now the water is more dense than the cold water, so it easily falls to the bottom. Again, no surprises there. But now what happens if I have hot water that's also saltier than the cold water below? Well, now we have an interesting situation. Even though the top layer is saltier, it's still less dense than the water below because it's hot. But now we have heat that wants to diffuse into the layer below, and we have salt that wants to diffuse into the layer below as well. If the heat diffuses, the blue layer will sink, But if the salt diffuses, the layer will rise. So we have two competing diffusion rates now. So what will happen? Little fingers start reaching downward. This is salt fingering, and it happens in the ocean as well. It's a form of something called double diffusion. This occurs because heat diffuses over 100 times faster than salt. Now what you're looking for here isn't just the blue fingers falling down, but the clear fingers reaching up into the blue as well. So you see stratification in what used to be just pure blue. So let's say we have our hot, salty water on top, and it's stable because it's warm enough to float despite being saltier. But if a tiny random protrusion forms downward, heat can quickly diffuse out of the sides of that bump, while the salt stays trapped inside because it diffuses much slower. So it becomes denser than the surrounding water and it starts to sink. As it falls, it transports heat and salt much faster than molecular diffusion alone. The falling fluid is still warmer and saltier than the water around it, so it spreads heat and salt very efficiently. Those regions mix rapidly, creating uniform layers. And once a layer is mixed, the fingering weakens until a new interface forms and the process starts again. Over time, this repeats again and again, building the step structure seen in the ocean. This is weird if you think about it. If we treat density as if it were diffusing directly, it would look like the diffusion coefficient of the density was negative. This means that the density differences aren't smoothing out like would normally happen, but they're becoming more extreme. So this demonstration looks like diffusion running backwards. If diffusion coefficients were negative, we would see amplification of gradients instead of smoothing out of gradients. But this doesn't break physics having this negative diffusion coefficient, because density isn't actually diffusing by itself. Temperature and salinity are still diffusing normally. It's their combination that makes density behave as if diffusion were negative. So I want to clarify also that these finger projections are different from simply dense fluid falling through lighter fluid or cooling water sinking. They only appear when two diffusing properties move at very different rates. In the case of dye just falling through water, it's never stable on top. It's denser, so it just falls through, forming this branching pattern. But in the case of the salt fingers, it's in a stable configuration already. The only thing that's driving it is these very different diffusion rates of heat and salt. In fact, you can even see similar double diffusive behavior with other combinations, like salt and sugar, because salt and sugar diffuse at different rates. This discovery of salt fingering helped scientists understand how the ocean can mix naturally much faster than expected, even when it appears perfectly stable. Nature always finds a way to create motion where we least expect it. And thanks for watching another episode of the Action Lab. I hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, remember to hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you next time.